Mining is essential. Gathering resources we use every day. But that's just scratching the surface. We're uncovering the facts as we find more jobs of tomorrow.
Mining is an industry that gets a bad rap. It's certainly not top of mind when it comes to sustainability. And it's definitely not helped by the way it's portrayed in most media. But this is the 21st century. And like most industries, mining has evolved. It's not just digging a hole in the ground. Let's take a look at how the mining industry is tackling these challenges and developing the jobs of tomorrow.
Sustainability and mining aren't two words that most people would put together in a sentence. As a matter of fact, some people would refer to the term sustainable mining as an oxymoron. Many prefer the term responsible mining.
I push back against the term sustainable mining because mining, by nature, you're extracting a non-renewable resource. So there's really nothing sustainable about that activity.
And that's a fair point from Nicole Smith, an assistant professor of mining engineering at the Colorado School of Mines.
How I prefer to frame it is talking about mining and how mining operations can contribute to sustainable development. And so I use the Brundtland Commission's definition of sustainable development, which is meeting the needs of the present while ensuring the needs of the future. And so thinking about mining companies have incredible opportunities to contribute to sustainable development in and around the communities where they operate.
Sustainability is a societal goal that has three main pillars to it: protecting the environment, economic prosperity, and it's about social equity. And the way to look at it is you can look at it at many levels. For me personally, the way I think about it is it's about preserving our planet and life and the environment on our planet in at least its current form, but also to make it better, to improve lives, not just for today, but for many generations out into the future. So the decisions that we make in everyday life as individuals or as companies, longer term, as countries on a national level, should be done through the lens of that sustainability goal. When we are making decisions, we should be thinking, how will it affect us many generations down the road?
Victoria Gosteva is the Decarbonization Program Manager at Newmont. It's a newly created position designed to integrate their decarbonization goals into the company.
We work across most of the functions within Newmont, starting with our sites, operations, projects, finance and business planning, innovation, technical services, communications, and many others. That's one part of it. The goal is to project manage, program manage, operationalize the strategy to enable the achievement of the reduction targets. The second big part of my role is to foster and create that environment of collaboration and partnership across the different functions that I just mentioned.
Goals like Newmont's decarbonization falls under ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. This is a set of criteria that companies use to measure how they are acting sustainably, something investors are paying much more attention to. The environmental portion looks at how a company is affecting the area in which it operates. For example, the emissions, or if those emissions are endangering the ecosystem. The social is people. How does this company invest in the communities in which it operates? And what does the relationship with stakeholders look like? And governance often refers to how transparent the accounting methods and leadership are. There are no strict guidelines for how a company should implement its sustainability goals, which is part of what makes Victoria's new position so exciting.
There's no playbook in the industry on how to do it, how to do decarbonization in our industry. So we are building it, and it takes the diversity of skills, of backgrounds, of experiences across the company to pull it all together. So to me, that's definitely contributing to sustainability, as we will be able to share it with our peers in the industries, with other industries, and we will obviously make some mistakes, and we will process it and share lessons learned, best practices. So definitely takes a variety of skill from communications, for example, because a big part of it is change enablement. In the company, we are shifting our culture from traditional mining company culture to this now employing some of these disruptive technologies that takes a shift in culture. It's obviously the right thing to do, given the unprecedented challenge of climate change that the world is facing today.
Today's mining companies are using high-tech innovations and scientific advances to improve operations and make practices more sustainable. Let's take a closer look at one company's solutions. Newmont is the world's leading gold mining company and has made large commitments to make their operations more sustainable.
Mining is highly energy intensive, so for those reasons, sustainability is even more critical for mining. I am proud to see that Newmont and many other companies in our sector are taking a very responsible approach to it.
The energy needs of the industry tie directly into one of the initiatives companies are implementing.
Newmont, being a responsible citizen of the world, decided to be a part of the solution on reducing emissions. In 2020, Newmont committed to a 30% reduction in CO2 equivalent emissions by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050. And these targets are science-based targets, and they were verified and approved by SBTi, Science-Based Targets Organization, last year.
If you're wondering why large mining companies like Newmont would commit to these targets, there's a couple of reasons.
Well, one, it's obviously the right thing to do, given the unprecedented challenge of climate change that the world is facing today, but also because mining companies are seeing increasing expectations from investors and from other stakeholders, shareholders, employees, host communities, to see action in how Newmont can contribute to achieving the overall global reduction in emissions. So that is why and how we have decided to commit.
But how can we reduce emissions? Since CO2 is most often the result of igniting fossil fuels, the solution that makes the most sense is to find a renewable energy source. Only a few years ago, If you were looking for an alternative energy source, you would have come across two barriers: availability and affordability. Solutions like hydroelectric power have been around for a while, but they rely on the availability of flowing water. It's only more recently that solar, wind, and geothermal power sources have become more readily available.
Today, this technology has been commercialized, and what we see often, it's more cost-effective now to build a renewable energy power source than a fossil-based power source. So the cost, from the cost perspective, that's definitely a feasible solution. There are still some challenges, such as intermittency. The sun is not shining 24 hours a day, unfortunately, and the wind is not always blowing. So developing solutions for energy storage to help with that intermittency is still something that the industry, not necessarily the mining industry, but the technology providers are actively solving for, and we are just happy to be a part of that solution. So we are, for example, looking at developing large-scale renewable energy projects at our sites in Australia, Boddington and Tanami. We are looking at large-scale wind at Boddington as one of the options. We are looking at a hybrid solution at our mine in Tanami in Australia. So it's exciting to be able to use the existing technology, but also to be a part of the solution for some of the more challenging areas.
Finding the right renewable source for the project is integral. And in Australia, wind is the best option.
The solutions are out there. It's just the way of finding what works, finding also, using not just the technology experts, but as mentioned before, business development and commercial, new business models, new practices and contracts are being developed when you're switching your power supply. So it takes a whole array of skill set and different types of experts to develop this comprehensive integrated solution.
And of course, all of the expert ideas and strategies are researched to determine their impact and then carefully implemented.
What you can't measure, you can't manage. So that's definitely one of the first steps that we've taken as a program. We're taking a hard look at how our data that relates to energy consumption, energy costs, emissions, how it's currently being collected across our operations. And we are working on centralizing all of that data, automating data collection, data analysis processes with the goal to have one data source that we can all leverage for making smart energy and decarbonization investment decisions.
The next step Newmont is working on is a monthly data reporting system, so they can track progress on smaller goals.
We are tracking closely how we're performing, and all those goals are to meet the ultimate goal of 30% reduction and then carbon neutrality by 2050.
So we want to develop systems that are not creating ecological harm, are not creating human harm.
I'm a product of my granddad's son. Hard-working hands and a job well done. Skin as thick as railroad ties, and you could see kindness in his eyes.
Sustainability doesn't happen overnight. It needs a foundation that's still being formed with scientists, programmers, and sustainability officers on the front lines of this change. And just like developing a renewable energy source, it takes time to develop these ideas. These innovations are being championed by the future workforce.
So when we're talking about mineral resource management, we're talking about the entire lifeline and life cycle of the mining process. We're talking all the way from exploration to reclamation, and even post-reclamation.
That's Kate Willa Brown Requist, a PhD student and graduate researcher in mining and geological engineering.
So we want to develop systems that are not creating ecological harm, are not creating human harm. Those are really the two main factors. We want to make sure that we are not creating danger to systems that are most valuable.
This is built into many ESG policies because, as Kate explains, a mine isn't a permanent installation, and we need to consider how land will be used after.
That's the nature of being a non-renewable resource. We can have mine plans that are, mines that have been operating for over 100 years. However, at some point, all of those mines are going to have to close. So what is the plan after closure?
It's not just the environment and the land either. The people in surrounding communities need to be considered as well.
What is the plan for businesses in the area? How are people going to make money and feed their children? That's really the big concern for a lot of these workers is, how do I sustain my way of life when this mine shuts down?
Sustainability and safety actually go hand in hand.
Dr. Emily J. Haas is a behavioral scientist who studied health communication. She sees a safe work environment as a way to connect mines and the communities surrounding them.
What we really found in our research is the value of bringing in the workers, involving workers, and giving them that voice. If you do engage the workforce, and then you continue to kind of engage the greater community, which is kind of part of that sustainability aspect.
And the wider communities surrounding the mines are part of the sustainable development. There are a number of indicators to measure, however. One of the most commonly used ones is from the Global Reporting Initiative.
They publish indicators that companies can use to benchmark and gauge their progress towards contributing to sustainable development. And a lot of companies are trying to match those contributions to the sustainable development goals. Ending poverty is, I think, the first sustainable development goal. So how can companies measure to what extent they're contributing to meeting that goal? And so these indicator-based frameworks, they can select indicators that, how much did we contribute to the local economy? So there's ways to really quantify that. But often I think a lot of the contributions can't necessarily be quantified. And so I think that there's an important role for narrative in demonstrating what companies are doing to contribute to sustainable development.
A number of innovations are being developed to improve safety in mining, which will in turn introduce new processes adding to sustainability.
I think the greatest opportunity that we're seeing around the world right now is we are beginning to remove humans from point of contact with the mine. And what I mean by that is that we can have people hundreds of miles away operating vehicles at a mine site. This means that they're allowed to, able to live in cities. They have more access to resources. They're not as geographically dependent on a mine to make money. There's more resources around it, and that's a really promising development. But with that also then comes, if I'm having less exposure to these environmental hazards created by these machines and by the process of mining, then we can help protect human health as we move along.
And while the future of mining may start to resemble playing a video game, as with any industry introducing automation, people will still be involved, just in new positions.
I don't worry at night about, am I going to, be able to have a sustainable career in the mining industry for the next several decades to come. That's not a concern I have, because there will always need to be human interaction. As much as we want to train models, somebody still has to train those models. Somebody has to start the process of data collection to employ and train these models. A model itself, is a human invention. It's incapable for the model to just train itself and make its own decisions. We have to teach that model how to make decisions, And that's one way that we can kind of protect jobs in the mining industry.
These solutions will need highly skilled programmers and engineers to design the tools needed for tomorrow. With plans taking shape, the future of mining looks bright. Partnerships between stakeholders are growing stronger every day. Sometimes, even with competitors working together on initiatives to further the industry as a whole.
To come to this solution on time, to meet the goals on time, we absolutely have to look at sustainability and emission reductions through the same lens as safety. You know, all mining companies 20, 30 years started working jointly on meeting safety goals, for example, and have achieved tremendous progress over the years. So to me, this challenge should be looked at through the same lens. You know, let's work all together across the industries, across the world.
New technologies and processes being implemented every day are keeping the mining industry on the cutting edge of sustainable practices. Leaders are conscious of preserving not only the planet, but also the resources supplying the industry. The industry is building a foundation based in scientific fact and constructed by the engineers, scientists, and programmers of tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Kristen Morand, and we'll see you on the next episode as we explore the jobs of tomorrow.